Just in last year 2021, Canada took in 405,000 permanent residents. That is the most in its entire history. And recently in late 2022, Canada's federal government announced an aggressive plan to take in 500,000 migrants per year by 2025. That is up almost 25% from last year 2021's number, with nearly 1.5 million immigrants coming to the country in next 3 years. This plan would see Canada welcome about 8 times the number of permanent residents each year per population than UK and 4 times more than United States. For many years, Canada has tried its best to attract the permanent residents, the landed immigrant who have right to stay in Canada and who are not citizens, to keep the Canadian population and economy growing. Immigration already accounts for practically all of the country's labor force growth, and by 2032, it is expected to account for all of the country's population growth too. The main reason for rising immigration in Canada is just like many other Western nations, Canada also has an aging population with lower birth rate. What it means is that if a country wants to grow instead of shrink, it will have to bring in the immigrants. I must admit that bringing in 1.5 million immigrants in 3 years is an ambitious plan, and I'm not against it at all. As being myself an immigrant, I would be forever thankful for the country and all the opportunities I got here. But with that, I would also like to highlight some of the important facts of the current state of Canadian healthcare, housing capacity, and the education system to check its sustainability with welcoming the influx of huge number of new immigrants in a small period of time. Let's look at the healthcare first. It's no secret that Canada provides free healthcare to its citizens and everyone sees it as a big bonus while coming to Canada. But the truth you don't want to hear is Canada's health system is collapsing. Every day there are more signs of distress and it is going to get a lot worse. Pandemic caused considerable collateral damage, including huge and expanding number of backlogs in medical services, employee fatigue and shortages, and stress on the system that already had trouble keeping up with the demand in timely and efficient manner. Therefore, it isn't unexpected that increasing number of medical authorities claiming that the system is in state of crisis and on a verge of collapsing. Year over year, Canada kept increasing the immigration, but with that clearly it wasn't able to keep up with the required infrastructure, and that has brought the healthcare to have a minimum 20 weeks of wait time for an average Canadian to get treated. Just imagine 20 weeks of wait time in a developed nation like Canada. Unbelievable. This data from World Health Organization shows how hospital beds numbers drop per 1,000 people over time in Canada. There is a recent study in 2022 which compares the performance of different countries' healthcare system to determine how well Canada's healthcare system is performing relative to its international peers. Overall, the data examined suggests that although Canada is the most expensive universal access healthcare system in the OECD, its performance is modest to poor. Here is another piece of data from that study, and many more proves how mediocre Canadian healthcare is getting year over year. Even Canada Medical Association's official website has some horror stories about the healthcare crisis. So there was some recent data and articles about Canada's healthcare system and current state. Now let's look at Canada's housing and shelter conditions. Canadian Mortgage Housing Corporation, which is also known as CMHC, is the National Housing Agency of Canada, concluded in a recent report that the country needs to build 3.5 million new homes by 2030 to tackle the affordability issue. Yet, Canada is averaging only 200 to 300,000 new units per year, so clearly math isn't gonna work with the anticipations. Housing development is already a slow process in Canada, and the three governments that are responsible for this are not in line with each other, and that is making this process more complex and much slower. Canada ranks 33rd out of the 34 countries in the OECD in the time it takes to obtain a building permit. And for the most part, things are getting even worse. On that metric and others, Canada needs to be able to compete with more than just the Slovak Republic. If we look at the affordability, Canada's two major cities, Toronto and Vancouver, are in the top 10 list of least affordable cities in the world. Without six-figure incomes or well-off parents, anyone in their 20s and 30s has to question whether they have a future in Vancouver and Toronto that includes home ownership. According to the report, in cities like Toronto and Vancouver, which are known for their expensive housing markets, the income required to afford a home is $176,000 and $200,000 respectively. Rentals.ca says the most expensive rental markets in Canada are actually Vancouver, with an average one-bedroom rental close to $2,600 and Toronto at close to $2,500. These numbers are based on a survey of a broad rental market including rental apartments, condos, houses and townhouses. With that, if we look at the Canadian economy's health, Canada is also forecast by the OECD, a club of mostly wealthy nations, to see the worst per capita GDP growth of any advanced economy. Canada, being one of the top destinations amongst international students to pursue higher studies, has its own dark sides. Canadian schools, partnering with the shady recruitment industry, attract youths from working class families. Demand has been cultivated by urban centers and televisions, littered with advertisements to go abroad via study visa. The issues including a dishonest and unreliable private college sector that defrauds foreign students across Canada. One of those incidents was when thousands of Indian students were scammed after closure of 3 Canadian colleges. High Commission of India also issued advisory. Another incident was in Toronto, Canada, where the international students of Alpha College of Business and Technology asked students forcefully to take an unofficial drop. Around 300 students already submitted their fees at college for the spring term, but later they have been asked to take an unofficial drop without any prior notice. Student workers from other countries are routinely exploited with education, labor, and housing. Also, some sexual predators target female international students who are aware of their financial vulnerability. Monthly suicides by international students are in a disturbingly high number. Last but not the least, a Statistics Canada study revealed that international students graduates were relatively worse economically. I know most of the people who migrate or want to migrate to Canada are mainly young adults who want to start a fresh and a better life in a whole new country, which is admirable, appreciable, and also encouraged. However, it is also important for them and their parents to understand what kind of challenges potentially they can face as an international student, migrant worker, or a permanent resident after making that decision. So you'll probably hear a lot of good stuff about the Canada as a country from the people around you, some blogs and videos, but I wanted to discuss, focus, highlight some of the not so good facts and concerning facts about Canada, so that whoever watching this video and trying to migrate to Canada is well prepared with the issue that the country is currently dealing with. Well, I hope you got some transparent insights about Canada from this video, and if you come this far, don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's it from my side, guys. I'll see you next time.